Hello everyone, it's Greg here from Hardest Reset, and I've got a really special video I'm doing today. Usually when a new game comes out, we like to do like a playthrough or, like an edited down video. But I wanted to try something a little different, given the fact that we've been in quarantine for how many weeks now, babe?
Huh?
We've been in quarantine for how many weeks now?
What is time anymore?
Time doesn't exist anymore.
We don't have jobs.
We don't, yeah. We've talked about it on the podcast, but with me being laid off, and I need to do something like a little different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to tell you guys my first impressions of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, as I'm going to be explaining everything and talking about everything, I recorded like an hour and 50 minutes of footage that'll be kind of interspersed as I talk about the various things and my various opinions. As a little bit of a background and some history, I had a friend that played Final Fantasy VII for me when I was a kid. By that I mean I didn't own Final Fantasy VII. I go over to his house and he had games like 7, 8, Legend of Dragoon, all the classic PS1 JRPGs and shit like that. And I would watch him play because he was fucking incredibly good at JRPGs, and be like, oh, that's really cool. And then I really became familiar with 7 when the mid 2000s happened and Advent Children was a thing. And who didn't watch Advent Children and stuff like that? Then in college, I revisited the game, and I don't have as much nostalgia when it comes to Final Fantasy VII as, say, like other people of Hardest Reset, for example, like Chrissy, May, Suya, and Brad. They have massive nostalgia for this game, and in my opinion, it's a decent game, but it's not my favorite Final Fantasy. So when the initial kind of rounds of, hey, the remake exists, I was kind of like, okay, all right, I might pick it up on sale. But what really kind of changed that for me was hearing them, because originally it was just going to be an action RPG, and then they were just like, actually, we're going to do both. And I'm like, wow, good on Nomura for doing that. That was really cool. And then like the E3 demo where they were in the Mako reactor was shown off, and I just went, okay, color me fucking hyped now. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna get this game day one. This looks like it looks like that they are putting a lot of work into it. And then they were saying that it's going to be multiple discs, and that there was going to be a bunch of other like there's going to be like a multi-part thing. And they were basically just like hitting the Midgar section of the game, which is pretty fucking cool.
And then Will Market happened.
And then, oh yeah, the other thing that made me go, all right, I got to buy this game was the trailer for the Wall Market section, which I cannot wait to get to. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, initial impressions. So I played the demo when it came out, and we didn't do a video in the demo just because it was one of those things where we wanted to just enjoy the demo on our own. But the demo is basically the beginning of the game. If you know anything about Final Fantasy VII, Mako Reactor 1 is a very iconic level as far as like gaming first levels in general.
I know nothing about it. Explain it.
Well, okay. You're going and you're infiltrating a Mako reactor with a group called Avalanche in an effort to try to keep them from sucking up the Mako in order to save the planet a little bit. And it's super iconic because you have the fight with the Scorpion. That's the boss fight. Unfortunately, they don't have the typo in this version of the game where they tell you the wrong fucking thing when the tail is up, which that is another iconic thing.
Pre-order canceled.
I know, pre-order canceled. Thank you over there.
The game is out already.
Yeah, I know, right? You can't cancel the pre-order. The game's already out. But it was in the demo. It was cool though. In the demo, they left out a couple things. In the demo, there's a section, and the footage will be playing now, where in game, the question from Jesse is like, you and Tifa are close, right? And he kind of like has a moment, and then he kind of goes back to try to answer the question. In the game, they actually showed the flashback of them knowing each other as children, which is actually pretty fucking cool. I guess, I know this is kind of already scatterbrained and stuff like that, but they did add, like, they did kind of purposely leave a couple things so that way when you're replaying the first 30 minutes of the game again, you're still getting some new stuff, which I do commend Square Enix for doing. As far as like the presentation, of the game as a whole, the graphics and the animation are just fucking gorgeous. There were a couple bits, especially when we got to Seventh Heaven, that I was noticing some like blurring in the background while they were kind of making the central focus. Like there's a moment specifically that stood out to me with Tifa, where you're talking to her at the bar and like the bottles look super blurred and you can't read the labeling at all on them. And it's the choice is that they're focusing on what's in front of the camera. It's a camera technique, but it stood out to me a little bit. But like that's like a minor nitpick for me. But the game as a whole is animated beautifully. The transition from cutscene to gameplay is really well done as well. They really. Yeah, it's near seamless. I mean, there's a couple times where they got to load. Obviously, between chapters, it's going to load the next chapter. I noticed, at least in my initial running with the game, I did not wait too long at all between chapters. And I know sometimes games can be made, or you can either make or break a game with making people wait long load times. Bethesda's notorious for starting with good load times, and then the load times become fucking insanely long. But it was really well paced as far as the transition from cutscene to gameplay, and then from gameplay back to cutscene, back to gameplay, and it was really seamless and really well done. The voice acting is fucking incredible. Some standouts. I love John Eric Bentley as Barrett. His Barrett is so fucking good. I like who the editing Greg will be putting like the names of the actors that I'm liking on, but the guy that they got for Sephiroth really pulled it off super well. The guy for Cloud is incredible. Tifa sounds amazing. The only thing I will say is there's a couple bits of dialogue with Aerith that I kind of went, ooh, we're going this direction with Aerith. Okay. And I know that, like, when you first meet Aerith, you don't kind of understand her history with everything. But it's one of those things where just a couple, like not even, like, the story bit stuff. Just a couple, like, bits of dialogue as far as, like, you know, when she's trying to see the invisible things that are chasing around her and stuff like that. Kind of stuck out a little bit. Definitely one of those things. But aside from that, like, the dialogue is so well performed. I think the only other thing is there was a bit when you get the materia from Jesse, and like there's a slight gap between the dialogue. It was either that part or maybe it was a part with Tifa. I don't remember. There was one part. You know what? No. It was the part going to the apartment with Tifa where, and it's not an issue of like the voice acting or anything. It's just they put a pause because you could skip through some of the dialogue, and that was kind of noticeable. But the cast as a whole is really good so far. I'm going to have Editing Greg play a clip right now of when I found Travis Willingham in the game, which is pretty fucking great. So here's that clip.
Mako is the lifeblood of the planet? Yeah, the hell it is. Goddamn eco-warriors with their dumbass posters. I tear them down and they're back up inside of an hour. Like I've got nothing better to do.
So yeah, voice acting is really cool, really well done. The story, if you know the story for Final Fantasy VII, you know the story you're getting into. But the one thing that I would say that was kind of a hesitation for me, especially when it comes to remakes of games, and I would say recently there's been a better track record, like with Resident Evil 2 and 3, having a very old story be modernized but not betray the source material. I'm only like a couple hours into the game right now, but they've done a really great job kind of keeping the story that you're familiar with and you know and love, but also making it just flow differently, because back in like the late 90s when it was all text and turn-based and stuff like that, you know, the story is told in a very different way. But they pull no punches on the language. Barrett is... Wow, that was embarrassing. Camera died about halfway through recording this video, so I get to redo the second half of everything I was saying. Yay. I know, congratulations to me, right? But anyway, so I was in the middle of saying that they didn't pull back on the maturity of the dialogue. Barrett's still very vulgar. Cloud threw out a shit word at one point, which is pretty great.
The shit word.
The shit word, yeah. No, they've maintained that level of maturity in the dialogue, which is something pretty great and something people were actually kind of concerned about because they're like, oh, please don't like make it tame and pull that back a little bit. But luckily, at least in what I've experienced, they have not done that. Getting into the gameplay now, I've got to try to remember what I said last time when everything died. Gameplay wise, so I'm going to kind of break this down into two different things. So kind of the controls and then the gameplay. The controls is where I have a couple of issues. The camera is a little weird at times, and the aiming mechanic is hit or miss. I had some moments, and I'm certain there'll be some footage being shown right here, but I did have some moments where I would be aiming at one enemy, and I'd be in the middle of attacking that enemy, and that enemy wouldn't even go down yet, and it would just move over to another enemy for no reason without hitting R3 at all. That was weird. And then there's issues of when you finish with an enemy, sometimes it'll default you to a different enemy that's like super far away. And that kind of got a little annoying in a couple of the fights, especially when there's like a bunch of enemies that you got to fight. But that's like my main kind of complaint with like the controls. And I would say probably my only complaint with the game as a whole was that kind of the issues I had with the aiming and the camera angles at certain points in time. It's not like unplayably bad. It's just there's a couple. That's probably the rougher.
It's day one, y'all.
It's the way that the game was made, and it's like there's some of it could be user error, but I like if I had any issues, it was just the aiming and a couple moments with the camera. That being said, the gameplay itself, if you played Final Fantasy 15, you kind of know what you're getting into as far as the action part of the game. I'm playing it on the action route. I know some big chunk of people. I know Chrissy, May, Suya, and Brad, or Chrissy, May, and Brad are going to play it classic. I want to say Suya might try action, if I remember our conversation correctly. I think we're telling it all wrong. He could also be doing classic. But what's up?
It's also been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, but it's one of those things where I'm playing as the action RPG way. If you're playing as classic, let me know how it is for you down below. But this is at least gameplay wise, I feel a little more. It's a tighter gameplay style. 15, while good in the gameplay department, did have some issues like the slowness of switching from person to person to person, and it kind of fucking with the fluidity of the gameplay and the action of each fight. I did not have that issue at all, especially in the Mako Reactor, switching between Barret and Cloud. It felt really seamless. Really quick. I felt like I wasn't losing any like precious time, especially in the Scorpion fight. It was really easy to bounce back and forth, and after you're done with the fight, like the fight is fully done, it puts you back to Cloud. So that way you're not having to scroll through your whole party in order to get back to your main party leader. I know there was like a hard cut right there, but anyway, so it's one of those things where when a fight ends, it defaults immediately back to Cloud, so that way you don't have to swap back. That was kind of nice. The way that they've translated the turn-based stuff, the stuff you use your ATB gauge with, and like your spells and your materia and stuff like that, it is translated extremely well in the action RPG stuff. You do the general hack and slash to build up your ATB meter, and then once you're done with that, and once you've filled up the meter, or at least have one of the sections filled up, you can hit X. It slows everything down to like a crawl. Mira said it in the video that we lost. It's like a bullet time, and it's one of those things where you can choose if you want to use like a special move with your blade, if you wanted to cast a spell, you want to use a potion or an item or anything like that. And it slows down, but the gameplay itself doesn't slow down, and it's really well put together and really well done. And I really loved the fluidity of the gameplay. It was really great. As far as glitches goes, there was only one glitch that I had. while playing the game. When we got off the train and getting to the Sector 7 slums, there was a part where I was walking, and the footage will show this right now, of like getting stuck in a kind of a loop of stuck in like in the middle of like a crowd of people, and it's like I couldn't get out. I had to like get out of an area in order to like not be stuck there anymore. But aside from that, there hasn't been any glitches, at least in my initial playthrough. Let's see what else. The music is fucking incredible. Final Fantasy as a whole has been known for really good music, and 7 specifically has some really iconic tracks. The remake of all of the music with the full orchestra just makes it feel like 10 times more epic and grand. I know the escape from the Mako reactor and then escaping from Sector 8. They did so well on the placement of the music in those moments, and it feels pretty nostalgic to the original game as well. And like when you're escaping Sector 8, for example, a redone version of the battle theme is playing as you're going from wave after wave of enemies, and it is just so fucking cool. And as a music guy, I'm a sucker for when a game uses music super fucking well. It's one of my favorite things in Skyrim. Red Dead Redemption 2 did it fantastically as well. Persona 5 does it incredibly well. It's just like I'm a music guy. I'm a sucker for good music, and they have taken an already iconic soundtrack and made it like they've updated it the best way possible. And I would say the way that the music has been implemented is probably my favorite thing about the game. There was a cool little moment when you first meet Aerith and she goes to give you the flower, and like the kind of beginning piano version of Aerith's theme starts playing, and I started really feeling the nostalgic emotion seeing that scene play out in the game, and it was pretty cool. And I love kind of, even for someone like me who maybe has not as much of a history with the game as other people, I'm feeling that kind of nostalgic factor, and the music kind of really sold that moment for me, and I really loved that. When you get to Seventh Heaven and some of the flashback stuff and getting to see Tifa again, really just like I said, all the music is great. The set pieces, the way that I mentioned it earlier, but the way that they kind of modernized everything, they kind of made the city feel like massive and huge, and it's incredible. And it feels grand. It feels like you're in an epic story, and I love that. And the music does so well to kind of help tie everything together. My final thoughts, I definitely feel like, I mean, if you played and even had a passing like of Final Fantasy VII, you're already playing this game. I feel like this game it's perfect for both the people. I don't want to say perfect. It's really good for the people that want to relive the game. Because it's got enough new that it's fresh and it's warranting the $60 price, but at the same time it's also got enough of that emotional, like, nostalgic feeling that you'll have with the game. And it's also a really good jumping off point for people who, like Mira, for example, who never really played the game, and this is a really good jumping off point. It's exceptionally well told story-wise. The animation is beautiful. The gameplay is pretty solid. The voice acting is amazing. The music is incredibly well done. And everything is just kind of put into this really cool package. I'm not going to rate it. I just think everyone should go check it out. We're in a period of time right now where there's a lot of people that need distractions. Everyone needs a distraction in what's going on in current time. But some people need a distraction just because of the state of the world. Some people maybe need a distraction because they're working an essential job. Some people maybe need a distraction because they got laid off or furloughed with what's going on right now. And this is, I would say, a perfect use of time. And I'm a couple hours in. In fact, after the camera died, waiting for the camera to charge up again, I was playing some more, and I'm just doing more stuff in the slums right now, and it's really great. I would absolutely check this game out, play it, relive it, experience it for the first time, whichever it gets Greg's seal of approval, but that doesn't really matter, honestly, because I'm just one fuckhead on the internet. No, it's good. It's good, and I'm glad that I said it in the stuff that got lost. The game feels as epic as people who've described it explain it. And I'm super skeptical with hype culture. And I'm usually the one to really pull things, like really kind of tear things apart if something is super hyped. And this game has been incredibly hyped, whether the OG game or the hype for the remake. I would say I'm not pulling it apart. It's living up to the hype, and it's really good and really well done, and I cannot wait to play more. So that's my first impression of Final Fantasy VII Remake. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of the remake so far. Tell me what your favorite part of the game has been thus far. Tell me how it is on Classic Mode. Tell me who's the best girl and why is it Tifa, and all that fun stuff. I already feel comments raging right now saying, how dare you discredit Aerith. Aerith is beautiful, but Tifa, man. You want to talk about OG waifus. So anyway, thank you guys so much for joining us. Tune in next week for the beginning of what I'm calling weird quarantine content, because quarantine's really got my head spinning with some really weird ideas. So yeah, that's going to be a thing. Look forward next week to a really weird short that I'm working on. Well, there's a lot I've got in my head, but there's one specifically I want to work on. So see you guys next time. See you guys next Saturday.
Okay, bye.